Okay. So the title of today's sermon is Seeing Red When I'm Feeling Blue. And although it sounds like a political statement, it's not. I'm going to start at the beginning as best as I can understand it. I was raised in an angry household. I don't know how many of the rest of you have been raised in an angry home. Okay? And while I once had a religious leader ask me if I felt that I was being abused, I don't think that I felt that I was being abused. I thought it was pretty common. Most of the people that were around me were angry people. Most of the people that I spent time with seemed to be bullies. Does that make sense? In some form or fashion, whether it was with their language or with their actions. I was in Boy Scouts, and although I really enjoyed the process of Boy Scouts, I really didn't enjoy the people I was in Boy Scouts with. The hazing seemed endless, the jokes and practical jokes seemed constant, and the inability to really connect with the people around me was really apparent over and over again through that process. However, I got my Eagle Scout. I graduated high school. Those of you who know me know that I was raised Mormon. My parents were very disappointed I didn't go on a Mormon mission. Very disappointed I didn't go away to BYU. I actively avoided all those things because I was tired. I was tired of participating in something that I felt was lying to me. And so I didn't go out and proselytize for the Mormon church. Instead, I went away to a private Catholic college that trains Jesuit seminarians to be priests. That's a way better way to go, wasn't it? I dropped out of school and found that the friends that I had, the people that I'm so close to now, we were sarcastic people. We could be cruel people. I wasn't always the nicest guy. I definitely wasn't the nicest kind of women. And I don't mean that I was abusive physically, or that I was like a horrible, violent person emotionally, but more along the lines of I just didn't treat women as anything other than something that I wanted as an object, as opposed to a being to interact with. It wasn't until I met my wife that I really began to understand that process. My wife and I have been married 18 years, and I'm still understanding that process. The difficult thing for me growing up, and the difficult thing for me getting married and then eventually having children, was that I didn't expect to have a family as an adult. I, was shooting to burn out at 27 like every good rock star should. And so I did not really focus on my emotional well-being or that of the people around me. Growing up, my dad seemed to be two people. When we were in public, he was fun and he was entertaining. We made jokes and we got along with everybody. And if he spilled a glass of juice at the table, he just laughed it off and made a joke. Until we got home and got reamed for it. In my house, we were constantly yelled at. We were regularly being told to be quiet, shut up. We were regularly told that our value was in our labor, not in our presence. That it wasn't appropriate to speak, that we were there to listen, follow, and obey orders. My dad worked a very strenuous job in which he was gone for 6 to 8 weeks at a time and then home for 2 to 3 weeks. And that happened during the course of my youngest years, so through like 5 years old until about 11 or 12. He was gone like that. I have 4 younger brothers and sisters. They're all 2 years younger all the way down. So my youngest brother's 8 years younger than me. So my father was pretty much gone the entire time that any of them were children or infants. Which meant the 2 weeks that my dad was at home was terrifying. He was not used to being around children. Then it was obvious. We got yelled at and screamed at and kicked out of the house and got spankings and got hit and we got in trouble. It happened. And I thought it was perfectly normal because most of the people that I went to church with and I corresponded with in the world had similar experiences. We weren't having our arms jerked out of socket. We weren't being left with welts from the switches we had to pick out back. We weren't being abused in a way that like an after-school special talked about abuse in the 80s. Right? That said, I did not enjoy my interaction with my father. When I left out of high school, I went to California and moved out there with some friends. They talked to my dad for about 3 years because there was no point in having a conversation with him. I was very clear on how disappointed he was in me and my lifestyle, and very clear that I wasn't going to change that. And so there didn't seem to be much of a point to have a conversation because it always ended in an argument that became overtly hostile. So, that brings me to my first point. Understanding Anger by Dr. Albert Rothenberg. This is from the Psychology Today website. And I've listed all the people I'm going to talk about and which articles I read and where they came from on the board behind me. If you want to know more information, I would suggest strongly reading the different individual articles. But he points out in his article that there's a difference between anger and hostility. Anger is a justifiable emotion that everyone has. The reason we have anger is because something is wrong. We recognize that something is not right in the world. And that creates justifiable anger. There's a reason to be upset about that. Many of us can think about things that are wrong in the world that justify anger. Racism, sexism, physical abuse, right? I could go on a long list of things that make me angry that I think are completely justifiable, but I'll just stop there because those are ones that are really easy and socially acceptable to talk about. Not that I have socially unacceptable things to be angry about. As we're talking about my son's shoes in front of the couch, it really ticks me off. So, anyway. The difference between anger and hostility is the intent to do harm. Okay? So, you can be angry and not intend harm. You can be hostile, and that is the only thing you intend. Whether you intend harm with your words, or your fists, or your moving vehicle, or your gun. Whether you intend harm by denying someone's access to a job or location. Whether you intend harm because you feel it's the only way to get your point across. There's another author who I didn't bring up because his entire article was about why white men are so angry. And I didn't think that that was really necessary, but he kind of pointed out that the lack of power that white men feel in their lives drives them to anger instead of fear or discomfort, because anger is something they can grasp onto readily. And it is socially acceptable to be angry in the United States in a way that being afraid is not. So, yeah, my dad scared me, and he was openly hostile. I remember distinctly getting in trouble because I ducked and he threw a glass at me and hit my sister in the back of the head, and she had to go to the hospital for stitches. She got 12 stitches. The story of my family to this day around Thanksgiving meal is that I should not have ducked.
Wait, you ducked?
I ducked when he threw the glass and hit my sister.
Oh my God.
And she didn't deserve it at all. If I had just stood there and taken it, then she wouldn't have gotten hit in the back of the head and we would all be a happier family. It's okay. It's a long time ago. But the point that I'm trying to make here is I did not want to be that kind of parent. I did not want to be that kind of adult. I did not want to be duplicitous in my actions. I didn't want to be dishonest with my family at home and the people around me when I was in public. And I thought I was doing a pretty good job at that. I don't hit my kids. I don't break things. I don't throw dishes. I don't put holes in walls. I don't slam doors. But I do get angry. I do get loud. And although I would never call my child a little fucker, I would say, God damn it, this fucking situation pisses me off. Okay? I try to be very careful about the words I use, but I do use angry words. And I do get loud. So I didn't think that that was a problem. I thought that I was really keeping my anger in control in a way that my father never had. But my family made it very clear to me that I am the angry person in our household. I am the person in our home that they change their behavior around so they do not make me angry. And that hurt a lot. And it didn't hurt because what they were saying was false. It hurt because it's not the person I want to be. I do not want to be the angry person in my home. I do not want my family to walk on eggshells around me because they're afraid to tell me things. I want my children to be able to be open and honest with me without fear of my anger. And I don't really know how to change that. And so I started this sermon. And I started to read some different papers by psychologists and watch some different YouTube videos. And one of the YouTube videos that I really liked was by Russell Coates. He's a psychologist, and he wrote a book, and he works on his patients with anger, compassion, and what it means to be strong. And his comment was that after studying a wide variety of different ways in the world that people deal with anger, that compassion seems to be the most ready example for how to counteract the anger in yourself. Because compassion means you have to understand the person you're interacting with empathy. And we've talked about this before, that empathy leads to compassionate interaction. Compassionate interaction is the way that we really lift people up around us. Okay? So it really spoke to me right off the bat, because I used, my trigger words, compassion, love. I like that stuff, it's good. I do not want to be the person that stops dialogue and conversation because of a fear of my anger. Now, I don't know how many of you people have ever seen me angry. I find it unlikely that any of you have. I'm not that person generally. And I find that the things that make me angry in the world are the things that I bring home with me, that I brood over and ruminate about, that frustrate me, that guide me to be angry in my house at people that I love more than anybody. and towards people that don't deserve it. And it is not because I hate them or because they're bad people. I don't often feel like I'm listened to. And it's frustrating to me because I think that I'm pretty clear about how I feel about things. But apparently I'm not. Apparently what I'm very clear about is that I will be angry at you if you do this. As opposed to, these things make it hard for me to feel comfortable in my home. Once I started to change the dialogue within my house, the anger changed inside of me. It is important to communicate your anger to your loved ones because anger is a healthy emotion that is necessary to show what's wrong in the world around you. My wife asked, she's like, are you going to talk about righteous anger? I was like, yeah, I think righteous anger is viable anger. There's a reason that it's called righteous anger. Okay? But there's destructive anger. And destructive anger leads to hostility. And hostility is not the way we treat our loved ones. It's not the way we treat our friends. It's not the way we treat people in the world. So, one of the other articles that I read, this one is by Janice Valhalla, the PhD. Do you have toxic anger issues and not know it? And she pointed out that there are two ways to know if you have toxic anger issues. The first one is somebody will tell you you're an angry person. She says, listen to them. Because in the world, anybody can lose their shit, right? It happens. You're driving, you get cut off, you go to the supermarket and they take the last thing off the shelf, you're standing in line, they close the register, right? There's all kinds of reasons that you can get justifiably angry or frustrated in the world. And any person in your presence can be like, that's a one-off. Okay? It can happen even multiple times around somebody, and you go like, it's just a bad day. I'd be angry too if I had a flat tire and I had to walk to work and I got muddy and I don't have clean clothes. And there's all these reasons that we can explain away, right? But if you are the angry person and someone tells you that you are an angry person, they have not told you that your anger fears them more than they've told you it does. They have not mentioned it more than once. By the time someone brings to you that you're the angry person, they're concerned about their relationship with you. They're concerned about your anger and its propensity to hostility. And that's a bad thing. Because, as I said in the meditation reading, when you're angry and people are afraid of you, they change their behavior around you. And you are no longer participating in genuine relationships. You are no longer being authentic to yourself and your community. And I want to be authentic to myself and my community. I want to be honest. So, how do I move on from my resting anger face? Because one of the things that really upsets me is being told that I'm angry when I don't feel like I'm angry. Oh, you look really angry today. Really? Because I was just thinking about how I got to pick up some milk and ice cream at the store. I don't feel angry. And then there's other times in which I need to remember that I need to create the space or the environment that I need to not be angry. So for instance, today, I'm writing the sermon about being angry, and my son's like, hey Dad, what do you want to watch on TV? Hey Dad, what do you want to watch on TV? You want to watch a show? You want to watch a YouTube show? I'm trying to write the sermon, but I can't watch TV right now. Hey Dad, you want to see the photos on my new camera? Hey Dad, you want to see, I got a camera for my birthday, you want to see the photos on my new camera? But I can't, I don't have time. I really got to focus on the sermon I got to write. Third time, I can't talk to you right now, stop! My wife came out of the bedroom and she's like, listen, your dad's got a bubble around him, just leave him his bubble. The problem is that I'm sitting in my living room on my couch in front of the TV, working on my sermon. Now, I don't have a lot of places to go and get away. I've created art places to go and get away for art, because I realize that in the process of creating art, I get angry when people interrupt me. And so I've converted my garage into a space for me to create art. And I've realized that when I'm trying to work on schoolwork, and people interrupt me repeatedly and I keep losing my thought when I'm writing paper, that makes me angry. And so I've tried to do all of my schoolwork here in the office at church, behind a closed door, because it reduces my anger and it makes it easy for me to get things that I want to accomplish without having to worry about that external interaction. In my home, I want to be in my home and be comfortable with my family, but sometimes I do not create the appropriate space for that. And because I'm not listening to my family's needs, I get angry because of my frustration, because of my fear that I'm not being the right parent, because of my just, my nitpickiness, right? Like, I'm not gonna get on the floor and pick up the shoes. Why aren't you picking up your shoes? I pick up my shoes, I put my shoes away all the time, except for the few times that I leave them out before I go to bed because I'm tired and I don't want to find it in the dark, and I can make all kinds of excuses. I'm a grown up and I pay the bills. Once again, it's not fair. How am I interacting with the people around me? Am I interacting with them the way that I want them to interact with me? When I'm in the world and it's a perfect stranger, it doesn't seem to be a problem at all. When I am at work and I'm dealing with persnickety clients, some of you don't know, I'm a tattoo artist, and so I tattoo people. And sometimes I tattoo people that I don't particularly like. And sometimes I'm asked to do tattoos that I won't do because I don't like them. And I've had some very tense conversations with individuals, but it's not angry conversations. It's like, yeah, I don't do that. Well, no. I had one guy called me a mofo the other day and said that I was an in-lover and that I could take it and stick it up my butt because I wouldn't tattoo a pig being accosted from behind by the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ while holding a Confederate flag. It's a traditional tattoo, right? So he was very angry with me on the phone. I wasn't angry in return. I'm like, shit, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't really matter how angry you are. That's craziness. It's not gonna happen. But I do have to have conversations and participate in community with people that I don't always agree with, that don't hold my own thoughts, that don't hold my own beliefs, that have what I think are kind of harebrained ideas or crazy interactions. All those things are probably inappropriate, politically incorrect ways to define those interactions. But that's who I am. So that doesn't mean that I don't get frustrated and upset. I learned a long time ago, mostly while waiting on hold with a wide variety of different government organizations, that getting angry doesn't fix my problem. Yelling and screaming at the operator who has nothing to do with why my insurance isn't going through, or yelling and screaming at the Cox, customer service person because my internet won't work, or yelling and screaming at the drive-through window guy from my home because they didn't put, a large fry in my bag, doesn't fix my problem. It just makes me look like an asshole. And honestly, I probably am more often than not. I don't want to be the asshole. I want to be a nice guy. I try to be a nice guy. But that kind of comes to a different problem. Janice Vilhar, I'm going to say it, Vilhauer. You say it however you want. There we go. How you don't get what you want, it's not what you expect. It's a YouTube video, and I put a link up there. The YouTube video has nothing to do with anger. But it does talk about expectation versus want and the outcome that you get from it. Okay? When you go into any interaction with expectations, you live up to those expectations. Okay? So she uses an example of a woman who's gone on a wide variety of really crummy dates. So she's set up to go on another date, and she assumes it'll be just as crummy as all the others. So she tells the guy to meet her at a coffee shop right after her yoga class, and she shows up in her yoga clothes, and she's sweaty, and she's crusty from yoga, and she goes and she sits down next to the perfect man. Just smells good, looks good, to the teeth, fantastic looking guy. And she is mortified, embarrassed. How do I even involve myself in this interaction? He's exactly what I want, and I would like this today. She excused herself to go to the restroom and then never went back to the table because she was terrified with her first impression. She showed up with the expectation that this was going to be another crummy day. And it was another crummy day because that's the expectation she brought to the table. We can look at the way that anger works in our lives in the same way. You go into the situation expecting to be angry. You go into the situation expecting to have justifiable anger in this situation. I'm completely justified in being angry. I've said this repeated times. It's not happening. This is not the way I expect the world to work. Then you're going to have an angry interaction. If you go into a situation and you live in mindfulness and in the moment, and as opposed to expecting an outcome, you allow that moment to organically happen, it is possible to check yourself. Because instead of gearing up your anger for the fight, you've come in open-minded. And in that open-mindedness, as that anger gears up inside of you, there are things that you can do to check it. You take a breath. You can step out of the room and ask yourself to be excused so you can come back and talk about this in a more level-headed way. You can ask that we have this conversation at a different time when you're better prepared. It's possible to change the dynamic of the situation. Maybe instead of standing over your child and looking down at them in anger, it's important to get down on your knees or on your bottom and look up. Right? Maybe instead of me sitting on the couch and dictating that people should clean up this mess around me, I could get up and start cleaning up the mess and encourage them to help. There are ways that we can de-escalate our anger. It's not bad to be angry. It is bad to be hostile. It is destructive in our relationships and in our homes. It's important to remember that the people that are around us love us. They want to be with us. That's why they're there. But if we continue to be hostile and angry in those environments, we're going to drive them away. So, what I ask of you today is to remember, and this comes from Roxane Gay, who wrote an op-ed for the New York Times in 2016. Who gets to be angry? She's a black woman. She's like, I get to be angry a lot. The more higher up you are on the privilege scale, the more it is necessary to remember to check your anger. Because there's a difference between being angry for being oppressed, and separated, not listened to, undermined, and being angry because people are not doing what you tell them to do, are not acting the way you expect them to act, are not living their life the way you need them to live it so that you can feel comfortable in their presence. There's a difference. And I know that it sounds like it's the same side of one coin, and it is. But when you go into the world and realize that there are those around you that are marginalized, and that marginalization creates anger, the same kind of anger that your lack of marginalization might create, right? If I go into a restaurant and they tell me that they have my table ready, and then I have to stand there for a half an hour and watch other people go in front of me while I'm waiting for my ready table, I'm going to get angry, right? And I'm supposed to be justified in that anger. But when we tell people who are being marginalized and harmed, their anger is hostile. That it makes it impossible for us to participate in conversation because their anger is scared, because it makes us fearful. Then we shut down the conversation. We have to remember that there's a justifiable time to be angry. There's a way to voice that anger in public. There's a way to voice that anger in private. Some of those ways to voice anger I think are really fun. Dallas has an anger room that you can rent out. And when you go to the room, it's just full of glass and plates and chairs, and you're given bats and axes and golf clubs, and you get to break anything you want for an hour. Just go in there and beat the crud out of it. Sounds like fantastic fun to you, right? Some people use exercise and sports. Some people use art. Sometimes it's important to express your anger without the person you're expressing your anger to being present, so that you can think about your thoughts, you can write them down. I know I'm talking about trolling someone's Facebook page, right? I'm talking about sitting down and measuring your comments so that the others can read it without having to hear your voice, right? Sometimes we have to remove ourselves from the situations that anger us so that we can look at them objectively and come back to them. So, I hope that today's conversation about seeing red when I'm feeling blue is helpful. Because I think in general, my biggest problem with anger is that it comes from my sadness and things not going the way I expect or want. And I have to check that sadness because it's not fair to expect and want things from people that I haven't told me, or expect and want things that are not mine to expect and want. So, live in the moment. Check your anger. Take a deep breath. Remember that it's okay to be angry, that it's not okay to be hostile. There you go.